it's like the last session on the last day of HIMSS, and I am very happy. There are some brave souls who either have their feet very tired or thought this is interesting or intriguing. Either ways, you're welcome to the session. What I want to do is really spend some time to talk about, I think the entire conference has been about AI. I think if you walk the conference and then stumble on something AI, then you didn't walk the conference, right? So what I want to do is talk about it a little bit with respect to kind of real life use cases and what you can solve and cannot solve for. And where do I come from? So I'm Navneet, I'm kind of the VP of product for Infinix. We are a rev cycle technology solutions company. But prior to that, I actually, just from a historic perspective, spent 20 years in healthcare, but the last 5 years I've dealt with healthcare and AI in particular. I did the first ever Watson solution in healthcare before moving on to do other things, realizing there is a lot of value in healthcare and AI, but there is a lot of hype versus reality. So I'm going to spend some time trying to kind of deconstruct some of that for you, and some of the marketing you've heard through the day you might kind of not take away with you as you go through the process, right? So who's Infinix? Just very quickly, we are a rev cycle technology company. We kind of cover most of the revenue cycle, but we're very focused on two areas: prior authorization, which we think has great potential to meld man with machine, and the other area is denials and denial recovery, where we think there is enough data to apply AI correctly along with human capital to really recover the most that our providers should for their service. Those are the two areas that we are focused on. So the word artificial intelligence, right, really does not apply in healthcare. Actually, to be honest, does not apply other than Elon Musk. To be honest, because what we have is technologies and capabilities that can help augment and improve our human capabilities, whether it's workflow related decision making. But we don't have technologies currently that can completely take over a human responsibility, especially in healthcare. So I like how AMA said, oh, we'll adopt augmented intelligence as AI instead of artificial intelligence, because I truly believe that for a very long period of time, it's going to be melding the man versus the machine. It is not versus problem, right? So when I look at it, it's a man plus machine problem in healthcare. It's not a man versus machine. Now there are a lot of people saying, okay, well, the machine can do all of it, but we still need our human intelligence. We need our empathy. We need a lot of those things that healthcare is critical for. It's not just a question of applying machine learning. But we think there is a value to it. And I'll talk about some use cases where we see the value and we see that it can be applied and we can connect the dots associated to it. But the biggest thing, the way I look at it, is that the whole point is to help make better decisions at the end of the day. We've always in healthcare had a lot of data. Then we said we should get some information. We've been working on a lot of analytics to get information, but then we have struggled with it because guess what, with IoT and EHR and everything that's come, we are swimming in more data, right? The biggest value proposition machine learning or AI can bring is to really help make sense of it. But machines cannot make decisions for us. So at the end of the day, they can give you intelligence, but you have to make decisions. And outcomes are functions of intelligence with decisions, not just intelligence. So whenever we can talk about outcomes, especially which is what we should be talking about in healthcare, it is good intelligence with great execution or action that leads to outcomes, whether it's on the patient side, whether it's on the provider side, right? Now here's the top AI applications. You guys must have seen a chart like this. I highlight administrative workflow because I think we'll get to robot-assisted surgery at some point in time, but administrative processes clearly are a place where we think we can apply now and get value. One of the biggest things, biggest value propositions of AI is to take away processes that we really should not be doing, right? It is not making critical healthcare decisions for us, but it is taking away processes that we should not be doing. And administrative processes, as most of you are aware, is one of the biggest pain points when it comes to healthcare. So I'll talk about how we can apply this in some of those senses and get value associated with this. And I think I kind of use the word, I like the word digital labor. I think there's been a lot of talk about AI. There's a lot of companies talk about robotic automation. Eventually, I think the goal is how do we take any administrative process, break it down into two things. One is grunt work that needs to be done, where a lot of automation has been applied and is continued to be applied. There is a certain amount of intelligence and decision making needed. And then at the end of it, there is still going to be an exception where a human still needs to get it. Right? So if we can understand kind of those three buckets in which work gets done, right? A certain amount of what I call grunt work automation, there is a certain amount that can be made machine intelligent, that a machine can help make those decisions. And there's going to be a bucket that the machine cannot help you still need your humans to go process, right? So we want to make sure our humans are best used in that process and take away the other bucket, right? So when you think about it, the goal is to accelerate the expertise of your employees, right? Whether it is a solution that's in call center or whether it's a decision-making solution. The fact that a machine can give you an answer which your best people could have given you makes everybody have that power of knowledge. Otherwise, the person who has 10 years experience more has better answers than the person who just joined. So there is an acceleration of employee expertise that you can achieve. You can augment the decision-making process and reduce manual processes. More important than reducing process in my mind, the more important thing is to actually achieve consistency. Because the one thing when we have human processes is the lack of consistency. Now we have done 6 Sigma and 500 different things to really make it consistent, but applying machine intelligence can actually give you a certain level of consistency to this process. Right? That is the other thing you can actually achieve with the whole process. The other thing is building a self-learning process. Today, when you think about a process, and we have this entire life cycle where the process breaks down and we reactively try to focus on how do we solve for it, how do we fix it. Then we have a team that comes together, we call it the SWAT team, Tiger teams, we love those names. They come in, they swoop in, they look at the data, they sift through mountains of data, crunch it in 50 different pivot tables and come up with, hey, I think the problem lies here. Yes. The machine is really good at doing those kind of things. And if you can learn that on a continuous basis, then you don't really have a problem where you're always reactively solving for it, right? So this is kind of the notion where we think machine intelligence or AI will play a very good role, especially when it comes to administrative process. But to achieve that solution, and you would have seen in the Accenture slide, one of the big things is the problem with AI or building a model is that it's easy to build it, but it's very difficult to maintain it. And none of our healthcare processes stay stable enough that the data and patterns are not changing. So you need ability to be seamlessly integrated and constantly accessing that data. I've done enough projects where I can bring in historical data and give you one result, but the question is, can I consistently keep it going? I need integration to do that. I need automation capability, because if I can give you intelligence, but if you can't automate it, if you don't have something to take action associated to it, it's not going to go anywhere. The other piece is you need domain expertise. Don't fool yourself if somebody comes in and says, you know, we're going to do AI and it's going to solve everything. They will need a ton of domain expertise. Either they bring it or they take yours, but they need domain expertise. Because machines are just math, right? But if you don't power it with domain, it doesn't go anywhere. So you need to understand that concept. And then you have to enable transparency back to your employees. What is the machine doing? What are you responsible for? And how are you going to be held accountable for? Because this is a big change management problem for organizations. It's not easy to just say, well, the machine is going to do this and you don't do this. Okay, am I still held accountable for it? No. You need to understand that. And if I'm going to be held accountable, what is the transparency that I'm going to get? So you need to make sure that you have the ability to meld those pieces together. And AI can be done, but it has to be done in a very specific fashion. I'm going to give you some examples of it. I'm taking a prior authorization process as an example of a use case. Starting from somebody walking in at registration all the way to kind of collecting co-pays. Right? You walk in, You try to identify the person, you get their insurance card. Sometimes they say we don't have insurance or this is the wrong card. You can apply AI, find coverages, missing things that are there in that process. Eligibility and benefits, you can estimate propensity, you can understand better whether they're going to pay or no. You still need a person with empathy to have that conversation to say, hey, I think you're going to owe us $500. Do you want to give us $100 or give us a credit card? But the machine can help you make that decision. Determine if prior auth is needed, which seems like a fairly complicated problem, but we have done work to actually kind of take data and kind of crunch it to make it work, where we can actually understand based on how patterns of payers are what kind of rules are they kind of keeping to add. Getting an approval, right? I mean, whether there's a risk to getting an approval, am I submitting the right amount of clinicals associated to it? Physicians are always struggling with peer reviews. 90% of peer reviews get approved. Why do they get approved? Because when a director gets on with a physician, they know that, oh, they're doing it for the right reasons. Oh, your clinicals did not say that. Can we help them identify that? Right? How can we understand what the turnaround time is so you can schedule the patient correctly? In many cases, you end up scheduling the patient saying, oh, it's 7 days out. But you have enough outcome data that you can apply machine intelligence to say, hey, I think this is 3 days out. This procedure from Aetna is 3 days out. We'll schedule it 3 days out. These are areas where machine intelligence from a use case perspective can add value very quickly. And when it comes to risk identification, am I going to get a peer review? Important to understand that. And then when it comes to copay, if you understand the propensity, if they have alternate financials, if there are financial plans to be given, you have a better sense of doing that. These are, if you look at a little set of use cases, you can see that if you have the right kind of data and if you can apply the right product and technology to it, you can get intelligence, but then you have to map it with your patient access teams to really make it successful, right? So there are other use cases in the denial space, recovery space that I can talk to, but at the end of the day, you can see it needs to be a combination of the human making the decision with the right amount of intelligence given to the human to make that decision. So, as I said, the goal is to build a learning platform within your organization. 3 things are necessary. You need the right amount of AI or machine learning capabilities in your product. You need the right amount of domain expertise that goes along with it. And then you also need the right amount of automation that you take away the grunt work. So if you can combine these 3, you can actually build a process that is a learning process. And I say learning process because the goal is not to do this once. The goal is it to be self-sustaining and continuously learning, because the patterns are changing, the approaches are changing, the data is changing. If you build, there are a lot of people who can build a machine learning model for a problem today, but that machine learning model cannot adapt to a problem tomorrow, right? So if it's not a self or continuous learning process, it's going to not give you value from an investment perspective. That's going to be critical for you to succeed at the end of the day. At Infinix, what we've decided is, let's take a narrow set of problems, collect enough amount of data, and then build for those use cases and solutions, rather than saying, hey, let's kind of solve the world's problems with machine learning, right? So, how to execute? I think that's the one question everybody asks. Okay, so this is great. We've heard from 50 people who talk about machine intelligence, AI-related capabilities. How do we go off and execute? First thing you have to recognize is it's not just buying a product. It's about rethinking your process. You have to realize that the new world of man plus machine needs you to rethink your process to be man plus machine. If you just say, let me bring a product, and it's not going to help. In many cases, I've seen you will face resistance from your man because he thinks the machine is a threat. If you don't have a process that melds them nicely together, you are not going to get value out of it. The second thing is, start instrumenting all your systems to capture what I call action data. Every action that a person takes is vital data. If you're going to build machine intelligence or get in machine intelligence-based customers or products, you have to recognize that your systems have to spit out the right amount of data of all actions, because the machine learns from the actions you take. If you don't have that data, garbage in, garbage out, the machine is not going to tell you the right answers. It's going to tell you something stupid. I think I was reading recently an article about the first guys who tried the Watson Health solution in the perfume space, tried to put their data in, and they found that every time it suggested shampoo. Because they had a lot of shampoo data, they did not have a lot of data on what kind of perfumes to wear. It was useless. So you would end up with that scenario. Third is what analytic solutions based on AI. Right? There's a lot of people who are using AI as a term. If you can't take actions using the intelligence and it clearly doesn't identify the actions that you need to take based on the intelligence, it just gives you charts and graphs, it's not AI. It's not machine intelligence unless you can get that. The other is there is a lot of general purpose solutions or AI first solutions, and my personal experience is that it takes a lot of investment on your part, domain expertise, data, time and money for you to be successful with it. Look for solutions that solve very particular problems that are using AI rather than AI first solutions in many cases. We're not very ready for AI first solutions at this point in time. In many cases, they don't have all of the pieces figured out together. So if there are products that really focus on embedding AI in part of a use case, that'll help you understand whether you got the right direction going on. Last but not least, evaluate results. It's very important because if somebody says I can give you a product that has AI embedded in or is an AI driven product, ask questions about results. What have you seen? What kind of outcome do you see? Do you predict something? What is the accuracy of your prediction? Am I supposed to make a judgment call on your prediction, or am I supposed to blindly believe the result that you're giving me? What is the level of comfort I'm supposed to have? What kind of decision making am I doing within the process? So it's very important to ask the question about what the results are and what the use case is, where AI is actually adding value before believing the hype with respect to AI kind of solve the problem. AI can solve lots of problems. You just have to know which ones you want to solve for you. Right? So as Infinix, what we are focused on is narrow set of use cases, very clear defined problems, large data sets that allows us to give good outcomes. At the end of the day, customers measure solutions on outcomes independent of AI. So focus on that. But we do believe very strongly that AI can play a very strong role, especially in the revenue cycle space and the administrative space. But it's going to be targeted to begin with. It's going to be use case specific. It is going to solve small problems before it solves bigger problems, before it solves all problems. So when you think about it, don't start with solving all problems because the hype is a lot in the market. Start with very targeted problems you want to solve it, and be very measured with respect to what value you are going to generate in terms of outcome. Because that is the big thing. I think at the end of the day, the person who's sponsoring the program or the project to bring in a new product is going to ask what is the additional value we generated. So make sure you can measure value other than the fact that it has got AI in it. Hopefully that was helpful before you guys all run away. Thank you so much. Really appreciate all your time, and hopefully you guys have all a safe flight back home wherever you guys are from. And if you're from Orlando, you're very lucky. Thank you very much, guys.